Guten Tag.
My name is Nur Izzati Najwa binti Amran.
And I'm Nurain Nadhirah binti Muzafar.
Ain and I will be presenting on the cultural dimensions of the Germany. We used two models to analyze the cultural dimensions of the country, which are the Hall's model and the Hofstede model. But before we start, let's learn about the demographic of the country first. Germany is a Western European nation with an estimated population of 83.7 million people. According to the current projections, the Germany's population is expected to peak at the end of 2021 with 83.9 million people. The biggest ethnic group is German, with Turkish being the second largest group. The remaining 6.1% is made up primarily of Russian, Greek, Italian, Polish, Serbo-Croatian, and Spanish descent. The overall life expectancy at birth in Germany is 81.9 years. Currently, the birth rate is 9.397 births per 1,000 people. The death rate is 11.392 death per 1,000 people. Additionally, the fertility rate is 1.6 birth per woman. In Germany, Christian is the dominant religion with about 65% of the population. Muslims make up about 4.4% of the population, while the other 30% are unaffiliated or have religions other than Christian or Islam. The official language of the country is German, with 95% of the population speaking the language, whether it is the standard or any of its dialects. The other minority languages that are also used are Upper and Lower Serbian, Romani, Danish, Turkish, as well as North and West Frisian.
On the present, they are forced to start all over again since the defeat of the Second World War. It took decades to confront the darkest aspects of their past, and this did not happen in just one night. Germany has a deep-rooted and fascinating cultures, which are expressed in their architecture, music, literature, philosophy, and in ways on how they think about the world. Germany has only been recognized as a country since 1871, and Germany's culture has adapted and changed over the years. However, Germany has just as much to offer as older European countries like Spain or France. As Malaysians, we might think that the cultural customs in Germany may seem different or strange, but falling in love with German culture is an easy task to do, especially after we get to understand them better.
Moving on to the Hofstede's cultural dimensions, I will explain three of these cultural dimensions. The first one is power distance. This dimension describes the extent to which the less powerful members of institutions and organizations within a country expect and accept the power that is distributed unequally. Germany is among the lower power distance countries with a score of 35. The communication there tends to be direct. Control is disliked, and leadership is challenged to show expertise and best accepted when it's based on it. Generally, the Germany people pay more respect to those with expertise, evidence of higher education and experience despite their age. Addressing their superiors with their first names is acceptable, even though it is common for Germany to address everyone formally, including their closest relatives and friends. Another example is how the Germany people address the police there. In fact, they have specific rules in which always opt for the formal address Sie when speaking to the police. It is actually illegal to address them by the informal Du, as failure to do so could end up in criminal punishments, including fines up to 600 euro. On the contrary, Malaysia scores 100 on this dimension, which means people accept a hierarchical order in which everybody has a place and which needs no further justification. Hierarchy in an organization is seen as reflecting inherent inequalities. Centralization is popular, subordinates expect to be told what to do, and the ideal boss is a benevolent autocrat. Challenges to the leadership are also not well received. Titles and job descriptions play a significant role in many Malaysian companies. In Malaysia, the desire to maintain a harmonious relationships is more important than challenging someone in authority. People usually avoid saying no directly to avoid any conflict in order to maintain a harmonious relationship. Moving on to the second Hofstede's cultural dimension, which is individualism. This dimension describes the degree of interdependence a society maintains among its members. It has to do whether people's self-image is defined as I or we. Germany is a truly individualist country as they score 67 on the graph. In individualist society, people are expected to look after themselves and their direct family only. They also have a strong belief in self-actualization. Germany people and culture are all about reason and logic. Their strong uphold, which is to be honest even if it hurts, which indicates they encourage honesty, openness and sincerity when communicating with one another, and that avoids polite superficiality. Loyalty is based on personal preferences for people as well as a sense of duty and responsibility. For example, the contract between an employer and the employee. Germany people are also hardworking and work-driven even as individuals. On the contrary, Malaysia scores 26, which means Malaysia is a collectivist society. In collectivist society, people belong to groups that take care of them in exchange for loyalty. Loyalty in collectivist culture is supreme and overrides most societal rules and regulations. This manifests a close long-term commitment to the member group. It can be a family, extended family, or extended relationships. It is because these are the places that people are guaranteed of financial and emotional support. Compared to the Germany, in Malaysia, the employer-employee relationships are perceived in moral terms, more like a family link. Additionally, feelings of shame and pride can be felt at the individual level as well as collective level. The third and last Hofstede's cultural dimension that I'm going to explain today is the long or short-term orientation. This dimension describes how every society has to maintain some links with its own past while dealing with challenges of the present and the future. With a high score of 83, this indicates that Germany has a pragmatic culture. The people believe that truth depends very much on the situation, context, and time. They show an ability to adapt to traditions easily to change conditions. They put efforts in modern education as a way to prepare for the future, and that is why Germany has one of the best education systems in the world. Germany people also show a strong propensity to save and invest, thriftiness and perseverance in achieving results. For decades, Germany has been known for its commitment to renewable energy and protecting the environment. It has been at the forefront of pioneering new technology to help improve their environment, and its dedicated garbage recycling system is one of the most thorough in the world. On the contrary, Malaysia has a normative culture with a low score of 41. The people have such a great concern in establishing absolute truth, which means they are normative in their thinking. They prefer to maintain time-honored traditions and norms while viewing societal change with suspicions. For instance, most Malaysian parents insist on their children to finish their studies first before getting married. They believe that getting married and studying at the same time is not a good idea. Malaysian people also exhibit a relatively small propensity to save and invest, and they focus more on achieving quick results. As a summary, I can say that although there are some significant differences in cultural dimensions between Malaysia and Germany, there are also similarities in these cultural dimensions, and Hofstede's model is a really good guide to help people understand these cultural dimensions better. Based on this model, we can understand more on Germany and Malaysia's culture and apply it to our communication, thus makes us more mindful of others' cultures.
Context. High and low context refers to how a message is communicated. In high context cultures, the physical context of the message carries a great importance, while low context interactions use the logical part of the brain and are less personal. Germany is a low context culture, and their people tend to be explicit and direct in their communications. They get straight to the point to say what they mean, and they do not beat around the bush. They are brutally honest in communication. People from low context culture may find that Germans to be cold and intimidating at the first meeting, but Germans are actually nice and welcoming. But it is indeed hard to build a relationship when you first meet them. You will need time, patience to gain their trust. Context comparison. While Germany is commonly known for its direct way of stating opinions and its logical, almost emotionless thinking, Malaysia as high context culture conveys thoughts mostly through non-verbal rather than verbal communication. Malaysians tend to be more indirect, and we expect the person we are communicating with to decode the implicit part of our message. For example, when a Malaysian friend says that he is hungry but could not leave his work to buy food, his Germany friend might not get what he is trying to say. For a low context culture like Germany, they might interpret this as that the friend will be hungry until he finishes work. But what that person really means is he would like someone to get food for him. Malaysians like to beat around the bush because for high context culture like Malaysia, saying that directly might appear as demanding. So they use an explicit word to convey what they actually mean. Time. Hall identified that time is another important concept greatly influenced by culture. Polychronic means many times. Poly, it means many. So in polychronic cultures, people can do several things at the same time. In monochronic cultures, or mono, one time cultures, people tend to do one task at a time. They do get their things done, but more in their own time. So and Germany, they are monochronic culture. They are really punctual. In Germany, if you are late, you need to notify the other person beforehand because they consider it very rude to be not on time. For them, an appointment that starts at 8 a.m. is an appointment that starts at 8 a.m. or 8:05 at the latest. People are expected to arrive on time, whether for formal events or even the informal ones. Time comparison. Malaysia, contradicts to Germany, is a polychronic country. While Germany really care about time, Malaysians think that people and relationships matter more, as in polychronic cultures, people regard work as part of a larger interaction with a community. as Malaysian, we tend to do many things at one time, compared to Germans who focus on one thing at one time. That's why we are easily distracted. Because of these differences, people from monochronic cultures might feel frustrated when working with people from polychronic culture, as completing the task at hand is the priority for people from monochronic culture. Space. Space refers to the study of physical space and people. Hall called this the study of proxemics, which focuses on space and distance between people as they interact. Space refers to everything from how close people stand to one another to how people might mark their territory or boundaries in the workplace or even in other settings. Actually, whether we consciously or unconsciously, we actually establish a comfort zone when interacting with others. Standing distances shrink and expand across cultures. Germany is country of high territoriality in space. They have a very sensitive personal space and they really need a space for themselves. Many Germans move out from their houses at early ages. They appreciate it if their parents only come for a visit once a week. For countries with Latino influence like France or Spain, physical contact is very natural to them. However, most Germans prefer to keep people who they do not know or not close to them out of their intimate space, which is about an arm length from the body. Space comparison. For space, Malaysia and Germany are quite similar. Both are high territoriality. Malaysians and Germans prefer standing at least arm's length from one another when conversing. 2 to 3 feet is normal for Malaysians, but when conversing with friends and close acquaintances, this distance is a bit shorter. For Germans, unless having an intimate conversation, any closer than an arm's distance apart is usually considered an infringement on personal space. Moreover, Germans generally do not touch when speaking. When speaking with those outside of the family or close circle of friends, touching can be seen as an invasion of privacy. But between friends and family, hand-holding, walking arm in arm, and hugging are common for Germans. Compared to Germany, in Malaysia, amongst friends and close acquaintances of the same sex, especially women, there are some touching during conversation. The last comparison is Germans have no problem with showing physical closeness openly when being in a relationship, despite their tendency to personal space. But in Malaysia, couples do not really be seen exchanging tenderness in public as in Malaysia. Islam is the official religion, so in respecting that, even Malaysians who are not Muslim do not show affection in the public. Summary. In order to understand a person and the culture that the person comes from, one has to look around past and inside that person, and Hall's principle of cultural dimensions, which are context, space and time, are very helpful as the first guide to know the person. The traits are our traits are actually are mostly taken from the people of the people we grow up with. The values and thoughts which have deeply embedded and have molded and shaped a person's behavior. However, we cannot blatantly assume that all the citizens in the country are as described by the host cultural dimensions, because there are also other factors that influence a person's behavior. So what important is for us to be aware of differences, so all the cultural differences can be accepted and understood without judgment, especially when working with people from different culture and different understandings, as ignoring this in an interaction and can potentially signal trouble. Conclusion. There are two key methods used to describe and analyze cultures. The first was developed by Geert Hofstede and focuses on 5 key dimensions that interpret behaviors, values, and also attitudes, which are power distance, individualism, masculinity, uncertainty avoidance, and long-term orientation. The second method was developed by Edward T. Hall and focuses on 3 main categories on how communications and interactions between cultures differ. They have high context versus low context, space, and also attitudes toward time. Based on our findings, with the guidance from Hall's and Hofstede's models, we can conclude that there are obvious differences in cultural elements of Germany and Malaysia, yet there are also some similarities in other elements of culture as well. When people from these two countries meet, there might be some misunderstandings if they are not aware of the opposite side's culture. Therefore, to avoid this, people need to learn about others' cultures, acknowledge them, and respect their cultures. In all, Hall's and Hofstede's models of culture can be used as guides to understand one's culture better.